Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Life Studied, where me and my good friend Mairin-taj Caya both talk about art and life and figure drawing and all kinds of cool stuff. Mairin-taj, how are you?
I'm alright, how are you?
Good, very good. So it's quiet here at PCAD. We're at the Pennsylvania College of Art and Design, who sponsors this show, specifically the illustration department. But we're here during winter breaks. There's no students, which is awesome because we can record. Yeah. Although I always worry like a janitor or somebody's going to come to wax the floors and interrupt. But how are you so far during your break here?
It's okay. It's going all right.
I saw you were modeling for, was it a painters group or something?
Yeah,
or?
local short dog studio. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm doing
Okay.
a lot of that this month, actually.
All right. That's gonna pick up on our theme today.
Yes.
But before I get into that, I should be more elaborate about our sponsor. So it is the Pennsylvania College of Art and Design. So we will often refer to it as PCAD, PCAD. You can check them out online. They have a bunch of majors. Mairin-taj was here as an illustration major, correct?
Yeah.
And but they have fine art, painting, some sculpture, photography, which is cool. We still have a dark room,
Yeah.
which is not a thing that is always the case anymore.
Yeah. And graphic design.
Yeah, and graphic design, top 20 in the country.
Oh.
Isn't that awesome?
Wow.
Yeah, it's a small design department, but they're doing awesome stuff. So, yeah, if you are an aspiring artist, even if you're not looking for a degree, the continuing ed program is really robust also. So, but we are specifically sponsored by the illustration department, of which I am an illustrator. Mairin-taj is probably more of a fine artist than an illustrator. She's a trained illustrator.
Yeah.
And she draws well.
But I transitioned.
Yeah, you have the sensibility of a fine artist. Is that maybe a better way?
Yeah, I think so. At this
Okay.
point, yeah.
So they are sponsoring us, and also Blackwing Pencil, which they send me all kinds of cool pencils. I'll be using this, the Pearl, today, which is one of my favorites. And I'll have a link if you guys want to check out our pencils. I'll have a link in the description so you can, support the show. Click that and just buy pencils. But yeah, so today's subject. So this is technically episode 6. We have 5 episodes on both our Patreons. You get them a week early, a week to 10 days early.
Yeah.
It's usually more like a week, but it's on either of our Patreons. Again, those will both be linked in the description. And we've talked a lot about drawing in general, but today I thought we'd get more practical when we talk about something that you know a ton about. Finding an open figure drawing session and how to behave once you're there, right? We have both lamented the fact that there's like no manual, right? You walk into a figure drawing session if you know how to find one, and there's no like rules at the door saying, hey, do this and don't do that kind of thing.
That's true. That's right.
So I figured we'd talk about that, and because it gets pretty in the weeds, this might be a 2-part show. So yeah, let's figure. And while we're talking generally, Mairin-taj, who is also a professional model, is going to pose, and I'll be doing probably terrible sketches while she's drawing. So yeah, so I suspect this is going to be one of those things that if you're curious about figure drawing, your first big hurdle is like, how the hell do I find a place to draw the figure?
Yeah.
And the obvious answer is like, you could always go out into a park or a coffee shop and just draw people, but they're not posing for you.
Right.
So you're looking to go beyond that, and you want to draw some figures. There are resources online for doing that stuff via video or with photos, but doing it live is best.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, and you don't want to get a degree. You don't want to get into an art program and commit 4 years to get an actual art degree. You just want to draw the figure.
Yeah.
So where do we go to find that kind of stuff? Like
So-
where do we call? Whose website do we check out?
Who you gonna call? Miss Kaya.
Oh my God, that's it. That is it. We need a t-shirt. Well, I mean, technically, you have a Patreon that has these kind of resources. They can.
Yeah, well, so we mentioned like online resources. I provide one of those, so it's great if you need or want online resources. It's good to diversify those as much as possible.
Yeah.
Just because then you get different models, you get different looks, all of that. So I'm one of those resources, and you can check that out. But even if you are doing well with online resources, or it's working for you, or whatever, it's good to integrate life studies as much as possible.
Right.
Because what you can learn from life is invaluable, and it does not translate through photography.
Yes, and there's a lot more distortion
Yes.
to working from photographs than you would think.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
So So I don't know anything about where to go draw.
Yeah.
Where do I go look first? Obviously, most people are going to go to the internet. So I would say, look for an art school near you.
Yes.
They probably have an open figure drawing session, at least throughout the spring and fall semesters. I know we do here at PCAD.
Right.
And usually there's a fee involved that's really nominal. It's like $10. I've seen some for as little as $5.
Yeah.
And the idea is that everybody throws a little into the pot, and that's how you pay the model
Right.
for the night.
I want to touch on that briefly, just because some people have issues with going to open figure sessions like that, because they'll go, oh, it's not $5, it's 10, or it's 20 even.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with that, but the reason is it will be more if you are in an area, or if the group is in an area where it doesn't get a lot of attention.
Right.
The fewer people attend on a monthly or weekly basis, the higher the price needs to be, because you are paying for the model.
Right.
That's the only kind of money circling around in that situation.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this needs to work, and for it to work, you need to be able to hire a professional model.
Yeah.
And have a safe space to draw in.
Yeah.
So
Right.
all that stuff costs money.
Yeah.
So yeah, the fees can vary greatly. Like I said, I've been to some as little as $5, as much as 20.
Yeah.
So you look for an art school.
Right. An art
Easiest-
school, or even a liberal arts school, sometimes they have an art department with
Perfect.
some resources. Like
Right.
the one Millersville and F&M, they both do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, Millersville and F&M are both local colleges here
Yeah.
in Lancaster, PA, where PCAD is, and they're very close to each other.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're lucky in that. I mean, how
Kind of
you?
a wealth of resources.
Yeah, I mean, we could walk to F&M from here.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
So there you go. You can reach out to a liberal arts college or an actual arts school.
Yeah.
Most liberal arts schools have, if not a full-blown art department,
Yeah.
like I think F&M has I think they call it studio arts, like that's the major.
Yeah.
So that makes sense that they would have an open figure session. And that's so when we say open figure sessions, we mean like they're open to the public.
Correct.
Generally, students can also go, if they're in the program, they can usually go for free as part of their tuition.
Yeah.
So there's also private organizations that will run them. I know in the city I live in, there is an arts, just an arts program, sort of community center thing, and they'll run one. There's a local artist and model that she runs her own out of like a cafe.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, you actually know her. I don't want to say her name.
Oh, okay, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Cafe, I've never tried
I
that.
think it's in a cafe. I
Huh.
think that's where she said.
Huh.
Don't quote me on
Yeah.
that. I'll have to look it up. I haven't been yet.
But like a venue that's not an art.
Yeah.
That's strange. Okay.
So you want to? I think there are even. So there's a thing called Dr. Sketchy,
Yeah.
which has a lot of local chapters, and it's a more like burlesque oriented figure drawing thing.
More theatrical.
Yeah, that's not real. I've gone to some, and they're super fun, but they're not really. I mean, like, I was there and I looked like the crabbiest dude in the room because I'm like there to study and
Yeah.
practice, and everybody's like, you know,
It's
having
sort of
fun.
entertainment almost.
Yeah, I mean, like, I didn't realize at one point, like, the model literally is like, so she came out in a costume, and I wasn't expecting that, but that happens.
Yeah.
You know, you'll do figure drawing sessions sometimes where they'll do a costume. And then in between she would like dance and remove parts of the costume, and I was like, that's making me. I wasn't expecting that part.
Yeah.
So you know, like you have to, and just we'll talk about some of the rules, but you're gonna have to be open to new environments if you're going, as long as they're safe.
Yeah.
If they're not sort of your thing, maybe just chill out a little bit and accept that maybe, you know, this is just the version of figure modeling that you're going to get if that's what you have access to.
Right. Yeah. Depending on where you're at in your resources, different groups or different organizations will have their own version of art,
Yeah.
of a life study session that may or may not suit your tastes.
Yeah, yeah. We have a chapter of Dr. Sketchy, I think, in Baltimore, which is near us.
Okay. Is that the nearest one?
There was one where I live, and it didn't last very long because the ladies that were running it didn't have a lot of experience with this stuff, and I just think it fizzled out.
Yeah.
Although they had a nice crowd.
Okay.
And that's the other downside of this, is that if it's not part of a college,
Yeah.
sometimes they fizzle out because the people running them don't know necessarily how to run them.
Right. Which is a great reason to listen to this episode.
Yeah,
Learn.
yeah, exactly. So so I mentioned schools, you mentioned liberal arts,
Yep.
colleges, I mentioned sort of private organizations. Is there any that I'm missing?
Well, this is very dependent on the type of community that you're in, but because of the kind of art bent that our region has, there are a lot of artists that are working in the area, and so the more artists that are working in your area, they might, of their own accord, kind of found their own little group. And
Yeah.
I actually work with a couple that are in the area. So
Okay.
there's one, it's kind of a private artist group, but you can, I think they have like a group on Facebook that you
Right.
kind of like ask to join, and then maybe if you like their vibe, then you can participate and go
Right.
to their meetups. But I work with them, they have a little studio near here, and I do that. So if you're kind of interested in the art scene, you know, the more that you can reach out, maybe use Facebook groups as a resource, or even look at flyers in your local cafes. There'll be some sort of like
Yeah.
artist group or artist meetup or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you can kind of feel those out to see if people have that kind of thing going.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Especially, I mean, I'm not, I don't use Facebook a ton other than for work stuff.
I'm not on it anymore.
Yeah, but I have found that is the place that everybody seems to organize these things.
Yeah.
Because Facebook has all these tools for like,
Right.
here's an event from this time to that time, and you can mark whether you're going or not. And you can start to gauge
Yes, exactly.
how many people are showing up. So
Exactly.
Facebook's a great resource for that,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, I mean, like this group I work with, the woman who hosts it, she'll use those Facebook events, and then she'll say, hey, I need 10 people to go because I need, let's say it's 10,
Right.
because I need to be able to pay the model and kind of, you know, make it worth my while. And then if she gets 10 people signed up, great, she has a little waiting list if there's more, so she can really get the information that she needs for keeping that going, which is really essential to being able to regularly go to an art group.
Which
It's like
is-
if they can keep going.
Right, that's perfect, right? Because then you have you sort of build a community around
Yeah,
it.
right.
And 10 people, it feels like a lot of artists, but
Mhm.
I mean, you might be able to do it 5.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, is if you don't have any, say you're in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah,
no art school, no community art center,
Yeah.
no anything, you might find you and 4 other friends that are willing to throw $20 in for the night and hire a model, maybe not for a full session, but a half session or something.
right.
You know, you want to look at, I mean, I don't know what rates would be everywhere in the country,
Yeah.
but you want to pay commensurate with, it is a strenuous job. I mean, you have to hold poses for a long time.
Right. And it's
you
a
know,
vulnerable job.
It
It's
is.
a risky job on the part of the model. So if I'm a model and someone out of the blue is like, hey, we'd like to put a group together and hire you for the night, I don't know where I'm going. I don't
Right.
know what kind of venue it is. I don't know what kind of what people they are, how professional they are. So that's a lot of risk on my part.
Yes.
And sometimes the money isn't even worth it. So
Yeah, yeah. That's why I like public place.
Yeah.
Like, and we should probably start touching on that too. I think, you know, for me, the rules involved with the open figure drawing session, all still, you can kind of boil them down to, you have to do everything in your power to keep the model happy or
Yeah.
comfortable.
Right. That's a
Because-
good rule.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one with the most exposure should be the one that everybody works towards making comfortable, because you can't do this thing without the model.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a challenge if you want to try to do it yourself, but it is doable.
Yeah.
And you could probably hire people even online, or someone you maybe know that's comfortable. And it doesn't always have to be nude.
No.
Nude is sort of the million-year-old tradition in the art world.
It's classical.
Yeah, but if you can't find someone that's comfortable with that, someone in tights, someone in even just clothes. I mean,
Sportswear, bathing suit.
yeah, whatever works, you can make it happen if you're sort of desperate and you don't have any other resources for figure drawing.
Right.
So,
Right.
am I missing anything else? Any other resources?
The thought that came to mind on that was just if you are pursuing kind of getting your own group together or figuring out a venue, even if it's within your own home studio or a rented space, if you're trying to figure out like how do I get a model to be willing to check that out, if you reach out to them, like show them photos of your space, maybe there's a website link where you can
Right.
give them as much information as possible up front about your setup, because that will help to build trust.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would even take it a step further and ask to, because on both sides, you may, we've had weird models.
Yes, absolutely.
So you may ask, hey, can we just meet somewhere for a coffee?
Yeah.
Me and my group, and you in a public space of your choosing where you feel comfortable, or neutral space,
Right.
and just get a feel for it,
Yeah.
so that you can get to know each other. But that's the extreme end. So easy one is find an art school near you and join their already pre-established figure drawing open section,
Yeah.
or find an art association of some sort, or an online resource, or set up your own.
Yeah.
So does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's
Okay.
pretty much all the options.
All right, right on. So I guess we should draw. You want to draw?
Yeah, let's do it.
And we'll talk a little about these sort of rules that we think everyone should follow here.
Oh, do I need to sign? Let me get my-
Oh yes, can you please? So an open figure drawing session, I'm glad you mentioned the time, because that's part of the deal. So traditionally you're gonna have some short poses that are warm-ups. They can be as short as 30 seconds, which is, that's a little intense. But they're generally around 2 minutes, 1 minute, 2 minute gesture drawings where you'll see everybody doing kind of messy warm-up sketches. And then depending on the open figure session, the person running the thing, they may move on to longer poses or just do a series of warm-ups and just go straight into one established long sustained pose,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So we've talked about how you find one.
Are we
Sorry.
start?
Yeah, if you did, I didn't know if you started one or not. All right, so you've found a figure drawing thing, a place that you like, and you're not sure what to do next, right? So we should probably, if you've never had any experience with this, we should probably cover some like really practical, bare bones sort of rules that you should follow, I think. And I mentioned earlier, right, like whatever makes the model uncomfortable is a no-no, period. Like whatever that may be. And we deal with students all the time who maybe this is their first time in drawing a figure live and they don't really know what to do 100%. So for me, the first step is I try to start describing it from the front door. So before you come in, you should make sure that, number one, that the door is locked. That's a good sign, right?
Yeah.
And if you come in, whoever's the last one in should make sure that the door is locked, period, right? So even if it's not locked when you first walked in, the idea is that whoever's last has to make sure that, people can't just walk in off the street or wherever if the model's in session. Does that sound fair?
Yes.
Is there anything I'm sort of forgetting to mention there?
No, I think that's it for that component for sure.
So you walk in, make sure the door's locked behind you. Probably when you first get there, you're not going to be right into a pose. What's sort of the first step we're talking about when, say, someone's walking in a door? They're actually, maybe we should take a step back and talk about the supplies, what they bring with them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, usually, if, unless you're like a really late person,
Yeah.
usually nothing's going yet, and that's our timer. And should I go into another one?
Yeah, whenever you're ready, yeah.
All right.
As long as you're good, I'm good.
And so people are just arriving, they're getting their supplies situated, they're getting their position, they're figuring out where they are in the room, etc. And the model will be there typically, preparing for themselves as well. So if I'm preparing as a model, that means me getting all of my, clothes where I want them to be, and I usually have water or whatever, a snack. I make sure I get changed, I have a safe place to be changed. And I kind of establish my area.
Right.
So the big thing here is that the model's area in the room where they're working is going to be separate from the artist's area.
Correct.
And there needs to be a clearly established and respected sort of boundary with that, with whatever group you're in.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes that's hard to delineate.
Yeah, right.
You'll be in a space where there's no changing room, or there's no space for the model to go off and change. So the rule of thumb for me is the fair rule is if the model is wearing his or her robe, they can go wherever they please, and that's, you could probably approach them and talk to them.
Right, you can interact with them.
Right. And chances are the model will come and interact with you often. At least that's been my experience when I've been at open figure drawing things. But if the model is changing, then the rule is for me is you're not looking, right? Because you look when they're posing, not when they're changing. The joke we used to make in our school was the model is naked when they're dressing or undressing, they're nude when they're posing.
Correct, yeah.
So do you want to establish any, or do you want to elaborate on that at all, or am I missing
Well, it's
anything?
kind of a psychological trick. It's just sort of lending a nod to the model's personal space, and the fact that they're not wearing clothes
Correct.
is, something you have to pay attention to. And when they're working, you can look, because that's the point, to
Yeah,
work from
yeah,
the nude
yeah.
model. So nude is just like a psychological kind of term for this is acceptable.
Right.
This is allowable, this is agreed upon. But if they're changing, or they're kind of like in the process of doing their own thing off their job, off the model stand, then
Right.
that's private, that's personal, you're not allowed, you're not welcome. I think I've said this before, but I've had someone ask me out on a date while I was trying to change, and I wasn't actively working, and that was just, but I was still in a model role, and that was just, don't do that. Don't engage with the model while they're in basically what they'd be doing in their own bathroom at home.
Right. I mean, but also probably it's probably just a good general rule. Like maybe don't come onto the model period whenever he or she is working.
No.
I think in America at least there's this heavy association with nudity and sex, and
Yes.
and that's not, if you're looking for that in an art school.
You're in the wrong
Yeah,
place.
you're totally in the wrong place. Like, there's much better resources for you.
Yeah.
An art school is not the place. So you're here to study and draw, and the model's here to work and not have to deal with you saying, "Hey, can I give you my phone number?"
Right. Yeah. It's not a personal or intimate or subjective moment. It's not meant to
Yeah,
be that.
that's a good way to put it. Yeah, it's not up for interpretation. Like,
Yeah.
maybe this person's into me. Like that you're thinking the wrong way 100,000%.
100. Yeah. As a model, I'm never in any way, shape, or form anywhere close to anything slightly even approaching romance.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned earlier, like you're at your most exposed and I don't know if exposed is even the right word.
It's a vulnerable.
Yeah.
It's a vulnerable setup.
Yeah, and Oh God, I thought that was the fire alarms. And who's feeling romantic when they're, you know, that vulnerable? So
Right, and also as an arts, in the artist's role, like, that's the last thing on your mind when you're trying to figure out how the shoulder joint is working.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
How do you need to apply your medium to get like the subject on the paper the way you want? Like,
Exactly. So, all right. So to get back on course, the point is, the model needs a space, even if there's not a physical space, even if it's a sort of a metaphorical one. And for me, the rule has always been, like I said, if they're dressing, if they're changing, if they're doing anything that's not posing, look away, go sharpen your pencil, go mind your business.
right. Like sometimes as a model,
Speaking
you
of
need
which.
to stretch
Yeah.
when you're on your break.
Sorry, my pencil just jumped out of my hand.
Oh, that's weird. And I mean, while it's not like a total no-no to talk to the artist or the model,
Right.
they kind of need that time to take a break from.
Yeah, and you know, everybody's individual. You'll find some models are very chatty and want to talk to you the whole time.
That's true. And other artists don't want to, or other models don't want to engage with you whatsoever.
Yes. You know, I've been in drawing sessions where the model's coming up like literally every break and walking around the room and wants to talk to everybody and wants to see all the drawings, and that's fine. You know, like that goes back to if they're comfortable, then that's fine.
Yes, right. And then in terms of setting up a space to help acknowledge that the model needs their space, which is separate from the artist's work area, as you're setting up, you want to make sure you're not like putting your stool or your easel or your chair, anything like
Yes.
a foot away from where they're going to be posing.
Yes.
You know, you want to give several feet.
Yeah. So in class, now we have the benefit of being in a big studio.
Yeah.
But in class, you know, my rule is always I want you up, you know, at least 10 feet away from the model stand if we can, if we have enough space for that.
Right.
There are times when, you know, like our last anatomy class was like damn near 20 people.
Oh.
So it wasn't always strictly speaking 10 feet. Did you want to do longer poses? What time is it?
Sure.
We're about half an hour in.
5?
Yeah, that's fine with me if you're
Yeah.
comfortable. All right, so we've walked in the door. We've made sure that the door is locked behind us. We've established that the model has his or her own space and time in which they're posing or not posing. And there's the golden rule of whatever makes the model uncomfortable is against the rules.
Yeah.
What are we missing in terms of like, as a model, like you've been doing this professionally for some time?
10 years.
Yeah.
Over 10 years.
So what am I forgetting? What is something I should definitely look for as an artist as I enter the room?
If not the facilitator or instructor or teacher or leader of the group of the session, some other artist, but generally the leader or facilitator should be communicating with the model before you begin and just kind of setting the tone. What's the expectation for the session? Are you guys going to be doing what kind of poses for how long?
Gotcha.
The breaks, you know, have a sense of, if I am not familiar and have a long established track record with a certain instructor or facilitator, as I do with you, then, you know, I want to talk to them before I start working, knowing what I'm getting into here, because it's important for the model to be able to kind of mentally prepare themselves and kind of figure out what they're doing when they're working. So you just want to make sure if you're a facilitator or instructor that you're doing that, and if you are in kind of a handmade, homemade situation and you're not seeing anyone take accountability and do that, maybe you step up and
Yes.
do that
Yes.
and say, hey, okay, thank you for coming, you know, like this is our space, are you comfortable, do you need a heater,
Yes.
are the windows, shades, blinds closed, stuff like that. And then you go into, okay, so we are a group that, you know, we want to do a lot of gestures, is that comfortable for you?
Right.
What are you comfortable with? How long would you like to do those? 1 minute, 2 minute, 5? You know, you just go over that. And frankly, you should probably be discussing what kinds of posing you want and for how long you need or for how long the model's willing to give you before you have that session.
Correct. And also remember you're not the only person drawing, right? So,
Yes.
because we've probably both been in sessions where there's one overbearing guy who wants to treat the thing like it's his personal drawing session, and controls the lighting and everything, and you're sort of sitting there waiting for him or her to just, chill out so everybody can draw. So don't be that guy. Don't show up thinking I paid my $20, I get to call the shots, because you don't. It's not the deal. That's
It's
not
a group effort.
Yeah. So you're walking in. You have an established set of rules that you want to be thinking about. You also have to physically draw, right? So depending on the setup, you might have an easel like this thing. If you're not familiar with an easel, it's literally just a vertical stand of some sort that holds either a canvas or a sketchbook in this case. Or you might have what's called a drawing horse, which is, this looks like a bench with one of the vertical sides longer than the other. So you can lean back on it if you want, or you can turn it around and prop your sketchbook on it. Generally what you want to do, I am not doing it because we don't want Mairin-taj and camera, but generally you want to set it up so that your sketchbook and the model are both visible in one glance, and you can make comparisons between your drawing and the model. I have my back to her and it's not ideal, but you either want to set up your easel or your drawing horse, or even there may not be either of those things. It may just be a chair, in which case you're sort of holding your sketchbook in your lap. That's not ideal, but again, you want to be facing it so you can make a quick comparison between drawing and figure.
Yeah.
You may want to have tools around you, so you have something to set your stuff down on, hopefully, in the space. I mean, some of the stuff is out of your control. You may go to a drawing session where you don't have access to any of this stuff. And then you sort of shut up and draw and wait for the timer to go off. So generally the facilitator should have, in this case Mairin-taj is doing it, so you probably hear the alarm going off in the background every so often. You have timed sketches, and the facilitator is probably running the clock, and when the clock goes off, your pose is done, whether your drawing is done or not, like in this case. Yeah.
Perfect timing. And with timing, I think it's important, like for me and a lot of other models, generally you should have the instructor or facilitator in charge of the timing.
Yes.
You can't really get away with no timing.
No.
I don't really care how well you know the model, you need to time them, because when you work, you're not going to be on the timing as diligently as you need to be, and when you're a model, 30 seconds makes a world of difference.
God, yes, yeah.
So, it's inconsiderate to be like, oh, I'm not quite done yet, can you hold it for another 2 minutes?
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm going numb and I might fall over.
Plus, you're, as a model, if I say I'm